2016 Buick Regal. Going to replace front brake pads and rotors. What you need to do is jack it up, support properly, remove the front tires. Lug nuts are a 22 or a 7/8. I had to use a 23 because they were swelled up. So I got all my lug nuts off. Now what we need to do is remove our caliper. Caliper is held on by two 14mm caliper bolts, and they're right here. One here and one there. These are 14mm head, okay? Next you're gonna do is get a little screwdriver, stick it inside there, and pry the caliper out towards you to push the piston in just a little bit, just to remove some of the tension in there. Then you can go ahead and pull your caliper up, put your caliper on the top, check it out, inspect your boot, make sure it's not cracked, torn, and also inspect for fluid leaks. Have none. Also, you want to inspect your brake hoses, make sure they're not cracked. All right, so you can get one of your old pads off, and you can go ahead and push your piston in with a C-clamp or the tool. Next you need to do is remove the caliper bracket, and that is held on by two 21mm bolts, and they're on the inside, one here and one there. Remove those. Then you can go ahead and remove your bracket. Alright, bracket is removed. Also you need to do is verify that your slide pins are free. If they're not free, then you have to try to heat them up a little bit, try not to melt the boot, and free them up and get them out. And make sure you break them loose from the boots. So if you try turning these and the boots are frozen onto the pin, you're going to tear the pin. All right. And then what you want to do is you want to clean these up, put some Sil Glide on them, rub it all over them, push them back in, and get some on the boot. Do not pack it full of Sil Glide. You won't be able to compress these. All right. So what you need also is remove your pads. And then remove the hardware. Get a screwdriver in there, pry it off. All right, now that surface inside there is a little rusty. You need to clean it up. You need to get that rust out of there, because what rust does is expands. When it expands, it tightens up the pads and doesn't allow the pads to move properly. All right, so when you go to get your parts, you want to make sure to measure your rotor from here to there. You know, when the rotor's on the bench, from there to there, to get the right size rotor, because there's a 131 and there's a 142. Okay, millimeter. I have the 131s, which is a 12 5/8. Okay, and this one also has rear vented rotors, and so you need to know that also. So get these all cleaned up, get them nice and shiny, put some paint on them, let them dry. Then you need to remove your rotor, and the rotor has a little retainer screw on there, and that is a Torx T30. You need to remove this, and then sometimes they break your bit, and when they break your bit, then what you need to do is put an X on them with a die grinder cutting wheel, and then get a chisel and chisel the quarter pieces out, and then you can go ahead and hit them with a hammer from the backside to break the rotor loose. All right, my rotor is already loose. I don't need to smack it with a hammer, and I'm going to replace it. So if I do smack it with a hammer and I damage it, no big deal because I'm replacing it. Okay, so next you need to do is get your rotor off. All that rust holding it on there. All right. Now the hub, pretty rusty. This is a stepped hub, high, low, high. Do not grind the highs to equal the low. Okay, you just want to clean this surface up on the outside, get nice and shiny, and the same on the inside. But just make sure that the centers are not rusted up enough to be higher than the the outside and the inside. So you need to clean that up. Try not to grind it away at the step. If there's any high spots on it, that will cause the rotor to wobble, and that will give you a brake pulsation through your brake pedal. So clean those up. And when you get them cleaned up, put a fine film of anti-seize on it. All right, when you get the hubs cleaned, you'll see the darker spots, and that's like a rust buildup. And right here, this was all dark, and I hit it with a pelping hammer, and it knocked it off. So if you're seeing that, you can do that with it. See if I can. It'd really be nice to have a welding chipping hammer. If yours are really bad, then you might as well just go ahead and replace the hub bearing assembly. And now you're gonna do is clean it up a little bit. Just feel them, see if you can feel the high spot. And feel it in there just a little bit. More tighter here against the rotor than here, and that's where it builds up the rust, swells up. What works the best is a little sharp chisel, and just keep hitting your chisel real fast with your hammer, you know, chips it away really nice. Now I just go ahead and clean it up again. What I use is a die grinder with a sandpaper. That one has best of times there, and that one goes over the studs. Caliper bracket's all nice and clean. And go ahead and put some paint on it. Take out your slide pins, put some Sil Glide on them. Do not pack it. Just make sure you roll around the pin in the Sil Glide, and then twist them as you push them in there. Make sure you got some on your boots, and let the paint dry. And if the paint dries, you can go ahead and put your hardware on there, get them prepped, ready to go. And then get your rotors on. Make sure you put some anti-seize on the hub before you put your rotor on, and then make sure you wash your rotor with soap and water to remove the shipping oil. Make sure you put your abundant clips hardware onto your caliper brackets properly. Make sure it's sitting flush, and right down in the center, here's like little clips inside there. Make sure they're clipped in best you can, push down. I'll use these little fine wire brushes to help push them down in there. All right, rotor is on. Got my little retaining pin in there, snugged it up, put anti-seize on it. Got my piston pushed back in on my caliper. I use the C-clamp and the old pad. Now I can go ahead and install my bracket. Front brake caliper bracket is mounted. I got it torqued. They want you to torque it to 111 foot-pounds. Follow it up with a 45-degree torque, and then follow it up again with a 11-degree torque. "90 foot-pounds is good enough for me. 100 foot-pounds. But I just gave you the spec. 111 foot-pounds plus 45 plus 11. All right. Time to put the pads in there. There's an inner and outer. These are the inners with the squeakers and no tabs sticking up. Tabs. All right. Squeaker goes towards the rotation. Doom, doom. All right. Put them in there. I'll show you on the outer first, okay? These act like little springs. You gotta push up against them. Put it in there. Pushing up against the other one. Push down on it. Bam. Same thing with the inner one. Push it in there, get it past that little spring. Come in here, find the spring at. Push on against it. Just a little bit of an angle. I might have to get a light in there so you can see what the heck you're doing. Might want to do the top first. Let's see. I always have a problem with these. All right. Thing always comes up. Come on. Come on. Oh, there it is. Got it. All right, it's in there. Now I can go ahead and take my clamp off of there and get my caliper on there, get down on there and get my two little bolts started. Snug them up. Caliper is in there. Sometimes when you gotta push the caliper on, you gotta push the slide pins in so you can get the caliper past it. Also on the bottom, get the bolts in there and snug them up. Torque them to 27 foot-pounds. If the pins turn on you, go ahead and get some needle nose vice grips, tighten up on them and hold them, and then torque those bolts to 27 foot-pounds. Make sure your hose isn't twisted. Make sure it's clean shot. Make sure it's not twisted or kinked, all right? So that will be it for this side. Now I'm gonna go do the other side. Do it exactly the same way. And then once you're done, go ahead, put your tires on with some new lug nuts if yours is swollen. And then you wanna torque them to 140 foot-pounds. And then lower the vehicle down to the ground. And go inside the vehicle, start it up. Push the pedal to the floor a couple times. Make sure you have a decent firm pedal. So that way when you put in drive or reverse, you have brakes. And then go ahead, pop your hood and double check your fluid level inside your brake reservoir and top it off as needed. And that will be how you do your front brakes, all right? But hopefully I helped you out with that, and hopefully you can help me out by subscribing to me, and I always appreciate it. Thank you.